For this acting joyful meditation, we're going to practice coming into the present and becoming aware before we move on to practicing 5 different emotions. And then we're going to play around with morphing between them. And finally, we're going to take one and push it as far as it'll go. So to start, let's just come into our breath and become aware of whatever the breath is like right now. You don't have to do anything with it. If you want to, you can also explore taking nice, deep, full belly breaths through the nose or the mouth. And then you can expand that awareness to include your body sensations, your posture, and keep the breath there as an anchor to keep you grounded in the present through this whole practice. But right now, we'll just keep it there as we expand to the body sensations, how the breath affects the body. Now we'll go out a little bit further again to encompass what's happening right now. Anything you see or hear, taste or smell, and those feelings in that. You don't have to follow my hands either. Just become aware of where you are right now and what's happening for you in this present moment. So, now that we're here, we're going to explore the 5 sort of basic human emotions. And I'm going to go from sort of negative ones to more positive ones. And I'm doing finger quotes because emotions aren't really negative or positive. They're signals. They're just telling you something. So what we're kind of doing now is, instead of having a stimulus causing an emotion, we're going to try and act out an emotion, and you can observe if that changes anything in your body, your sensations, also maybe your thoughts, how you feel. And I'm going to start with sadness. So let's try and get really sad. Maybe your face droops down, your voice might change a bit if you try and talk a bit to me. You might start taking, these kind of breaths. Or maybe you're quiet or sad. Maybe you just kind of cave in and kind of fold in on yourself, or you want to go hide or something. You don't want anyone to see you in this state. And then, let's go into mad, because sometimes when you're mad, when you're sad, you get mad as a reaction to that. Emotions can react to emotions, right? And when you get mad, you don't just cave in anymore. You usually start getting out. It's a good way to get out of being sad, right? You might start gesticulating, you might start pointing things, you might start looking more intently at someone who you're talking to, you might start talking louder, quicker, looking around. It's a more agitated state than quiet sadness. And now, disgust is kind of a lot like anger, but it's almost like you're surprised and angry at something. You don't want to run away from it, but you definitely don't want it near you, so you're kind of going back from it a bit, like, ugh, or like just, you don't want to deal with it yet, but you might have to if one of your pets threw up somewhere or something. And now, if we take that kind of anger out of it, we're just left with surprise. Oh, wow, I didn't know that was there. It could be a happy surprise, or it can just be a neutral one, like, oh, I didn't know. Oh, okay, it sounds breathier, I think, when you're surprised. It's almost like you're trying to prepare for whether it might be an angry surprise or a happy surprise. Either way, you've got air, so you're prepared now. And from there, we can go into happy. And when we're happy, everything kind of lifts up. We're not just coming out like with our anger coming at you. We're kind of opening up. We're not coming at anymore. We're opening to everything. We're opening our mouths. We're opening our eyes. We're maybe opening our arms. Who knows? Depends on the happy. So the reason I like to do them in this order too is because when it comes to morphing them, you can do kind of like that trick. You can do sad, and then scrunch to angry, and then kind of come off a bit to disgust, open to surprise, and then lift to happy. So that was down, scrunch, back off, up, and open. You can play around with morphing those, use whatever words you like. And then for pushing one of these emotions, let's take joy again. And first, though, let's come back to neutral. And just come back to the breath for a few moments. And also maybe take note here that this neutral place is always available. Whether it's in this practice to put little spaces between emotions, or if you're doing this, if you notice emotions come up in your regular life, just note that this neutral place is always here. It's always available. So now that I'm neutral, I'm just going to bring a little contentness into it. And you can hear that my voice changed a bit, even with just a little contentness, right? So with this little contentness, I'm going to push it to maybe a bit more delight. Oh, that's nice, isn't it? And maybe now I'll push it a little further into, I'm actually happy now. Like, this is great. Isn't this awesome? Maybe I'll start gesturing more. That kind of happens when you're happy, whether it's a surprise happy or a more, sort of emotional, like, oh, this is wonderful. And you can push that even further and like start gesticulating more, like you're really excited, like, yeah, I just did something awesome. You might be a fist pumper and start getting those in, or you might be a full-on jump arounder. Or maybe it's almost like an emotional happy, like you're so happy you can cry right now. And isn't it weird how now we've come full circle back to sad? Cool, right? Oh, that's amazing. So you can push it out even further from there. What kind of actions do you do when you're happy? Do you dance around? Do you give yourself a hug? Are you one of those people who pats themselves on the back? I don't know any, but that sounds really nice. Like what brings you, what kind of things do you want to do when you're expressing happiness? Because joy is one of the things we actually express more intentionally than other emotions. We tend to react in sadness, anger, disgust, surprise. We don't usually use it as a tool to communicate intentionally as much as happy. We use happy to say, everything's okay, I'm agreeable, everything's fine. Like if you go into an interview, you're not going to go in angry, even if something does piss you off. You just want to communicate, no, I'm a team player. So this is something we're used to using as a communication tool more. But you can also think of those other emotions too, if you want to practice them. If you want to practice communicating anger, that can be a very useful thing. Because sometimes if you're feeling angry about something and you want to communicate that you're upset, instead of just reacting that way, that can be a useful way of saying, hey, we need to talk. Or if you're sad about something, there's a calm way to communicate that that's not as disruptive or isn't going to maybe halt the conversation as much as the full-on, that full-on emotion. So you can try practicing pushing all those other emotions, and then maybe even dialing it back to see how far and how calm you can make those. Enjoy.
Now, as we transition over to the art part, I'm going to start with a few be mindfulers, just reminders to be mindful, so we can tune into this present moment by taking a few calming breaths. And just become aware of the sensations of breathing and any other sensations you're feeling right now in your body. You can check in that the posture is stable and balanced, but also soft and pliable, like a lump of clay. You can also become aware of the feeling of the paper under your hands or any tools that you have. And now we can start looking at the layout of the page and sort of think about our intentions for creating in this space. What colors do we want to use here? For this, I keep calling it a time flower for whatever reason. To me, it looks a little bit like a clock, and it has all these flowers bursting out around it. And I might push it to make it look a little bit more like a clock. We'll see. I think of this as a good time to use both my spring and summer palettes. Maybe show a little bit of a transition from one to the other. So I think of spring as being a lot of greens and pinks, and summer as having more yellows and purples. There's no reason for this. It's just what I think of when I think of these seasons. So I'm going to start with a little yellow here in the center. I'm just using some markers that will put down a lot of nice color quickly. Because after all, 10 minutes isn't a whole lot of time. But that's okay. The point of this isn't to finish everything and make it perfect. It's to take some mindful moments creating something. So I'm just going to make some circles. They might not end up perfectly straight. Some of their overlaps might be a little funny. And that's all okay. There's 5 circles here, so I may need another color to enter the picture here. Sorry, 6 circles. With these negatives in between. If you're following along at home, you can just do some loose bars around every second circle or cylinder? Circles within circles. I could always take a circular guide and try and make these more perfect circles. But I've found in many past designs that this effort is sometimes not necessary, and since there's little leaves and flower petals overlapping in certain parts, I might actually end up forgetting about those and just making a circle right over them. And this way I can just be aware that that's coming up and leave space for it. There. Now I've got my purple, and I'm avoiding a few little petals here to finish it off. So I've got my 6 circles and a few bars in between to make it look a bit more clocky. I might go ahead and add in some hands here on my clock, just to make it a little extra clock-like. Now, to color in these little flowers, I'm just going lightly with some pencil. I'm not worrying too much about their shape because I'm going to go over it with the pen afterwards to give it more of that. And again, I'm not worrying too much if I'm coloring perfectly inside the lines. Those 5 little petals on each of these little side flowers can be very sketchily and easily drawn in once I'm done here. I might go in and do some of the flowers around the sides too. And again, I'm just doing some loose little bulbs and dots here and there. But now I can go in and outline. I'm kind of thinking of the spring to summer as moving from left to right here, so not sure yet if I want to do mostly pink flowers on one side and purple on the other, or if I want to put them around the circle for a bit more of a balanced composition. I do like the idea of having a few dots here and there, so maybe we'll go with that. Now I think I'll go in with some green for finishing off some of these petals. Don't know how much time I'll get, but I'm just going to check my palette here to see which one of these I want to use where. I think the light green is going to look a bit more springish than summery. Like the leaves haven't taken in as much sunlight yet, so they're still a nice young light green. Again, I'm kind of just doing some loose ovals when I do those. Okay. Might go in around the actual circle as well and get a few more of these leaves, because it can be a bit easier to fill in the greens on a floral design like this. That way there I can see where I want to use my other colors, the pinks and purples and maybe some dots of yellow later. The green will be kind of a background color, so filling this in first will help me to see where things should go. And I'm kind of leaving a bit of space because I am going to use my other green in some leaves. But since there are some repeating patterns, I might look for the ones that repeat and try and do a bunch of the same color. Now, I think I've run out of sand, so maybe I'll think about what I want to use for my writing prompt here in terms of colors. I like the idea of spring being in green. The word spring. And the season, I suppose. Oh, but you know what? I don't think we did our little mindful reminders. So, let's just check back in with our posture and our breathing. And I like to sometimes lightly trace over a prompt just so I can read over and sort of get it into my head and start pondering while I'm tuning into my breathing of how can I celebrate the end of spring? Well, just filling in a couple more things that stand out to me here as I'm tuning into this prompt. But I'm still being aware of this layout and my body and my breath as I'm teasing out parts of it that I want to make stand out or think over a little bit more, let's say. So, that question of what 3 things I'm grateful for and anything I'm grateful for not having is something I want to carry through to this part now where I'm filling things in. The lovely thing about tracing over these fonts and taking a bit more time to put this question in is that it gives you time to actually mull the question over instead of just trying to hop right into answering it. By tracing over or writing in this question slowly and a little carefully, you can ponder. What can you do to celebrate the end of spring? I think of celebrations as times to give the things you enjoy pride of place or emphasis somehow. And that's why writing down things you're grateful for are great ways to start thinking about making a little mini celebration for yourself for spring. And of course, anything you're grateful for not having is another side of gratitude that I like to use this question whenever I'm feeling grumpy because it can be hard to think of things you're grateful for if you're in a bad mood. And that's okay. That's normal. So, for some reason, thinking of what I'm grateful for not having is more accessible when I'm not in the greatest of moods. And there are plenty of things to be grateful for in the spring. It may not be as warm or sunny as summer, but it's not winter. One of the other reasons I like using these colors is to connect things. So I'm going to use the same color to write down what I'm grateful for. And one of the things I'm very grateful for is my patio garden is mostly grown and flourished. There are a few late starters, like my lettuces seem to be lagging. So it goes. I'm also feeling better and better after my weird thunderclap headache episode from a month ago. And on that note, I'm thankful to not be getting headaches, so that's a thankful for not having thing. We also had some wasps coming in a skylight crack that we patched up, and they're not coming in anymore. Fingers crossed, knock on wood, I guess. But yeah, and so I'm grateful for that. And also for my sweetie, who went up on the ladder, respecting my very deep and long-standing fear of heights. So I'll keep filling in here as I think over how I might connect that to celebrating the end of spring. The rains are finally lightening up a little bit, but I might go in while I have this my greens out, and just fill in some of these leafy parts while I'm thinking over what exactly I'd want to do. I was mulling over the idea of a patio party versus an indoor party, and it really depends on where the rains are going to be this weekend. It could be rainy, despite clearish forecasts, and that's okay. I'm okay with that, but I will just jot down now, patio party of one. Not much of a party, but I like to think of it that way, I guess. And I can bring out some books and fancy drinks for myself to make it a little special. connect that to my patio garden gratitude. Maybe I'll just continue with some of these other little leaves for a bit. This design is a nice chance to give your mind more time to wander by wandering back and forth from the question to the art parts. You can mull things over and let things arise, like, well, you know, if it rains, I'll just do a little couch party. I guess more of a hangout. I guess they're either way going to be sort of low-key, but these are my simple celebrations that I can do with just myself and some books and tea and some lo-fi music maybe, or some jazz. That would be fun. Kind of want to add a little blue to this design too. I'm noticing these little dotty things. They look kind of like little S's with dots going across them. I'm gonna do those in blue. Will be my little raindrop plants. Not that this is a thing, but it can be here. And I'll just keep doing a few more of these leaves, my summer leaves. Get a few of these nice big ones in. This isn't a bad time for a little posture and breath check as well, while I'm still wandering back and forth between my question and my drawing, coloring. There. I think I have time for a few more leaves, but first I want to sneak in that I might take my mandolin out onto my patio party. That'll definitely make it a party. Okay, so now I'll flip my timer again just to take another mindful moment before I move on to crafting. Take some nice calming breaths, check my posture, maybe do some shoulder circles and wrist circles here. Feel out my body a bit more, and again just notice the design and layout that I want to create here. and maybe connecting it to that drawing. I can start playing a little bit with how I might want to place things, but I want to be mindful of things that I want to include and how I want to layer them. So just gonna erase something here that I had, because I think I want that door to go right into the corner. Yeah, something like that. I'll make sure everything's nice and straight here before I flip my other timer and start collaging. Wonder if that should go there. Oh, I also have these little flowers that I dried out. They're Hoyas that bloom in my windowsill, so I wanted to add them just because they've been blooming a lot this spring. And I don't know if they're gonna stay nice and white like this when I tape them in. I tried this on another design and they turned more reddish, like you can see some of them are slightly reddish. I'm just grabbing the back off this sticker too because I want to see where I want to put that little bunny without actually sticking him in yet. So I can use him as a guide for how I want these little flowers stuck in, along with this other paper of flowers that I'd already stuck in. I got a little too excited about starting this design. It happens. And had an idea that I'm going to just try out. I don't know if it'll work or if it'll completely mess up, but I thought to stick these guys in and maybe help them retain their color. I was going to try using some dots of glue to sort of seal them in, if that makes any sense. So I'll dot those on and then try sealing them in with tape. Maybe I should have tested this somewhere else first, but you know what? I think of my journal as a place to experiment and try stuff out, because this isn't about making perfect finished pieces of art. This is about experimentation and play and just creativity. Don't even know how I'm going to push this glue around, but I guess I'll find out. Yeah, that seems to be filling in the cracks where air was getting in on my previous attempt at doing this, so then again, I don't even know if it's the air that's denaturing the color in these or if it's something else, so who knows? This might not work. And now I have glue all over my hands, so I'll grab this. There we go. this double flower is going better than I thought it would. Kind of already like the way that looks. It's a bit cloudy and weird, but it's certainly interesting looking. And last one. Don't know how this glue is going to interact with the tape glue, actually. It's kind of making things slide around a little bit. I'll just secure that a little bit better. Okay. Well, even if they discolor, I like the way those look, and they remind me of spring. So that's a good way for me to create a little encapsulation of that in here. I don't know if it'll bleed through to the other side though, with the glue being held in by the tape, or you know, if it'll dry the other direction, if that makes any sense. So I'll just put a little mat behind here. Hopefully that'll help. But now I'll see if I can measure out where I'm gonna put this so that I have enough room for my tapes. I selected some tapes in my purple and pink summer and spring themes that I want to use on either side to sort of mirror each other. And I'll just mark off where I want this so I don't have to fuss with it. So what I'm trying to create here is a sort of contrast between spring and summer, but with some overlapping connections and not exactly mirroring, but like slight reflections. So I wanted to use this torn page that's in half as sort of my reflection point, and I was going to put some tapes on the top and bottom in my palette. And I think my door, I don't want it to open like the other ones I've done. I think what I'm actually going to do is glue it in so that it's a closed door, because this is the end of the season. That's very simple and silly symbology, but that's what I'm here for. So I'll stick in my closed door of spring. I'm closing the door on spring. And now I'll put in my spring tape, which has these cute deer jumping up towards what looks like a moon with clouds. And they're actually mirrored in my purple tape that's going to go on the summer side, except they're traced outlined instead of actually filled in. And instead there's birds flying. So there's even animals in these decorative tapes that, to me, are good spring versus summer animals. I have a darker green for the bottom to go with my motif. And this is where it can be a good thing that I haven't completely filled in my design, because I'm actually going to be covering up part of the flowers on the bottom. So this is a good reason why it's good to wander back and forth between different things. My bunny might end up there even. So I'll stick in my summery purple. I want to get that deer in to reflect the other deer. And I may be actually out of time now, so what I might do from here out is just speed up the video so that you're not sitting through everything. But I'll just explain that what I'm trying to create as a finished product, I'll have the moon mirroring a clock, and I have some greens that I'm going to use to kind of connect both sides in tape. Yeah, I have some little beehive looking things. I don't know if that's what they are, but that's what they kind of remind me of. And a little butterfly just to fill out the summeriness of it. So if I were doing this on a typical day, I might just return to this on work breaks and do this throughout my day. But for the sake of the video, I'll do it all now so you can see the finished product. I hope you enjoyed this session of mindful multi-art journaling, and I hope you join me again in the summer.